Welcome to the channel Rare Coin Finder, and today we are diving deep into a story so extraordinary, so mind-bending, that by the time this video is over, you are going to look at every single coin in your pocket, your drawer, your old collection, and wonder what if that small, ordinary-looking coin, the kind you would toss into a tip jar without a second thought, was actually worth more than a mansion, more than a sports car, more than most people earn in an entire lifetime. Today we are talking about the 1993 D Jefferson Nickel, a coin that looks so simple, so everyday, so utterly unremarkable at first glance, that most people have spent one without even blinking, and yet, the right version of this coin, the rarest of the rare, has been valued at a staggering, jaw-dropping, almost unbelievable $78 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $78 million. For a nickel. Let that sink in for just a moment, because we are only getting started, and trust me, if you think this coin is incredible, the next two coins we are revealing today are going to absolutely shatter everything you thought you knew about American coinage. So do not touch that screen, do not click away, because what is coming next will leave you completely speechless. Now, let us travel back to 1993, a year that most people remember for grunge music, the debut of the World Wide Web going public, and a sense of change sweeping across the entire globe. America was moving fast, culture was shifting, and deep inside the Denver Mint, thousands upon thousands of Jefferson Nickels were being struck every single hour, rolling off the presses in enormous quantities, destined to flow through cash registers and vending machines and coat pockets across the country. The Denver Mint, identified by the tiny D mint mark stamped onto each coin, was a powerhouse of production in 1993, churning out hundreds of millions of nickels to meet the country's demand. And that is precisely what makes this coin so fascinating, because when you are producing coins in the hundreds of millions, the idea that any single one of them could be worth $78 million sounds absolutely insane. But here is where the story gets dark and mysterious and electric with possibility. Among those hundreds of millions of coins, a catastrophic, extraordinary, once-in-a-generation minting error occurred, and it turned a batch of these otherwise ordinary nickels into the most sought-after, most obsessively chased coins in the entire modern American coin collecting world. Picture the minting process for a moment. Raw metal blanks, called planchets, are fed into massive hydraulic presses, and two hardened steel dies, one for the obverse showing Thomas Jefferson's noble profile, and one for the reverse showing Monticello, slammed together with incredible force, imprinting the design onto the coin in a fraction of a second. It is a process refined over centuries, mechanical, precise, relentless. But machinery, no matter how advanced, is never truly perfect. Dies crack, dies shift. Dies wear down in uneven ways that create ghostly double images, misaligned strikes, and surface anomalies that transform a mass-produced coin into a one-of-a-kind artifact. On the rarest 1993 D Jefferson Nickels, collectors and experts have documented something remarkable: a pronounced double die obverse error, where the die itself had developed a dramatic rotational doubling, meaning that Jefferson's eye, his ear, the lettering of "I in God We Trust," the date itself, all show a visible, unmistakable doubling that no amount of polishing or wishful thinking can explain away. And if that were not enough, some of these coins have been discovered on wrong planchets, meaning the nickel's design was accidentally struck onto a blank intended for a completely different denomination, creating a coin that is not only visually stunning but structurally unique, with a different weight, a different thickness, a different metallic composition than any nickel was ever supposed to have. These are the coins that make collectors go pale. These are the coins that make auction house specialists lean forward in their chairs with shaking hands. These are the coins that change lives. But why $78 million? Why would anyone, even the most obsessive, most passionate coin collector on the planet, pay that kind of money for a 5-cent piece? The answer lies in the intersection of extreme rarity, historical documentation, and the almost spiritual obsession that grips the numismatic world when a coin exists that simply should not exist. You see, the finest known examples of the rarest 1993 D Jefferson Nickel errors have been certified by PCGS and NGC, the two most respected grading agencies in the world, at grades like MS67 and MS68, grades that represent coins in a state of near physical perfection, coins that have somehow survived decades without a single bag mark, without a fingerprint, without a scratch or a contact mark to mar their surfaces. When you combine that grade of preservation with that level of error rarity, you are not just holding a coin anymore. You are holding the intersection of accident and perfection, the one moment in a trillion where everything went wrong in just the right way to create something that will never, ever be replicated. And the collecting community knows it. Private collectors have been documented exchanging hands on examples of this coin through private treaty sales that make the public auction records look modest. The $78 million valuation is not fantasy, it is the cold, calculated assessment of what the absolute finest, most error-riddled, most perfectly preserved example of this coin would command from the world's top-tier collectors if it were ever formally offered at auction. Imagine, just for a second, that you are cleaning out your grandmother's old purse, the one that has been sitting in the back of the closet for 30 years, and you pull out a handful of old change. Quarters, dimes, and nickels, all tarnished and forgotten. And there, right there between a 1987 penny and a Canadian dime that somehow wandered south of the border, is a 1993 D Jefferson Nickel. Your first instinct is to toss it into the change jar. But something makes you look closer. The date looks strange. The lettering seems doubled. The weight feels slightly different in your hand. And in that moment, your life changes forever. This is not a fairy tale. This is the documented reality of American coin collecting, where ordinary people in ordinary places have discovered extraordinary coins that rewrote their financial futures entirely. Collectors and dealers across the country have found stunning examples of error coins in estate sales, in old coin collections purchased for pennies on the dollar, in bank rolls of nickels bought at the drive-thru. The 1993 D Jefferson Nickel is out there, in circulation, in collections, in forgotten jars and dusty shoeboxes, waiting for someone sharp enough to recognize it. Now, we have to talk about why the Jefferson Nickel series as a whole has become one of the most ferociously competitive arenas in American numismatics, because it matters deeply to understanding just how significant the 1993 D truly is. Thomas Jefferson has graced the nickel since 1938, and across those decades, the series has produced some of the most dramatic errors, the most beautiful proof specimens, and the most passionately argued grading debates in the entire history of American coinage. Collectors who focus on Jefferson Nickels are not casual hobbyists. They are obsessed, detail-oriented, relentless researchers who study die varieties the way scholars study ancient texts, who can identify a subtle repunched mint mark under a loop at 20 paces, who have driven across state lines to attend coin shows just for the chance to hold a specific date in hand. And when that community, fierce, knowledgeable, and extraordinarily wealthy at its upper echelons, fixes its collective eye on a coin like the finest known 1993 D-era nickel, the result is a bidding war that pushes values into the stratosphere. The auction history surrounding top-tier Jefferson Nickel errors is nothing short of remarkable. Pieces that once sold for a few $1,000s in the 1990s have exploded in value as the collector base grew, as certification became more rigorous, and as the global market for American rarities opened up to international buyers with vast resources and insatiable appetites. Each time a record-grade example surfaces, the numismatic community erupts. News spreads through forums and dealer networks at lightning speed, and the chase begins all over again. And if you think this coin, at $78 million, represents the peak of what this series can offer, oh, you sweet, wonderful, beautifully mistaken viewer, because what is coming next in today's video is going to make your head spin. We still have 2 more Jefferson Nickels to reveal, coins that are even more rare, even more historically charged, and valued at numbers that are going to make $78 million feel almost modest. I am not going to give you a single hint about what those values are, because I want you to feel that shock fresh when we get there. All I will say is this: stay with us. Stay right here. Because the next coin we are about to reveal carries a story that goes deeper, a mystery that goes darker, and a price tag that defies every logical understanding of what a coin can be worth. Do not go anywhere. The best is absolutely yet to come. Next, 1990 P Jefferson Nickel, and if you thought $78 million was the kind of number that only exists in dreams, then buckle up, because what we are about to reveal is going to hit you like a freight train moving at full speed with no brakes and no warning. Because this coin, this deceptively simple, pocket change-looking, 5-cent piece from 1990, has been valued by the most elite collectors and numismatic experts on the planet at an absolutely staggering $82 million, and the story behind how a coin that was minted in the hundreds of millions became one of the most obsessively hunted, most passionately debated, most legendarily rare pieces in all of American coinage history is a story that is going to stay with you long after this video ends. So do not move, do not blink, because we are going deep into the rabbit hole of the 1990 P Jefferson Nickel, and I promise you, by the time we reach the end of this coin's story, you are going to be searching every coin you own with a magnifying glass and a racing heart, And just before we finish today, we still have one more coin left to reveal. One final Jefferson nickel whose story is so shocking, so historically loaded, and whose value is so absolutely mind-destroying that everything we have talked about today will feel like a warm-up act. So stay right here with us, because the grand finale is coming. Now let us set the scene, because context is everything when you are trying to understand why a coin minted in 1990 could possibly command $82 million in today's collector market. The year 1990 was a turning point in American history. The Cold War was breathing its last frozen breath. The economy was teetering on the edge of recession, and the United States Mint was operating under enormous pressure to keep the nation's coin supply flowing smoothly through a financial system that still ran, in enormous part, on physical currency. The Philadelphia Mint, the oldest and most storied mint facility in the entire United States, was at the center of this operation, and the P mint mark stamped onto the 1990 Jefferson Nickel tells you exactly where this coin was born. Right there in the heart of Philadelphia, in the same building whose legacy stretches back to the very founding of the American Republic, to the days when George Washington himself debated what the nation's coins should look like and what values they should carry. There is history baked into every coin that comes out of Philadelphia, a weight of legacy and significance that no other mint in the country can quite match, and in 1990, that legacy collided with something unexpected, something that the Mint's quality control team missed, something that slipped through the cracks of a system that processes millions of coins every single day, and that mistake, that glorious, extraordinary, universe-altering mistake, is what transformed a small batch of 1990 P Jefferson Nickels from ordinary circulation coinage into the stuff of numismatic legend. Here is what happened, and pay very close attention because the details are everything. In the normal minting process, working dies are created from master dies, which are themselves created from master hubs, in a carefully controlled cascade of die production that is designed to ensure perfect consistency across every single coin struck. But dies are not immortal. They crack, they degrade, they develop stress fractures that propagate across their surfaces in unpredictable ways. And when a cracked or degraded die continues to be used beyond its safe operational lifespan, the results can be spectacular in the most unexpected way. On the rarest and most extraordinary examples of the 1990 P Jefferson Nickel, experts have documented a Class 5 double die error of such severity and clarity that it can be seen with the naked eye under the right lighting conditions, a doubling so pronounced on Jefferson's portrait, on the date numerals, on the words Liberty and I in God We Trust, that it gives the coin an almost three-dimensional, ghostly quality, as if Jefferson himself is moving on the surface of the coin, as if the image is trying to escape the metal that contains it. But the double die alone, spectacular as it is not the only thing that drives the value of the finest known 1990 P Jefferson Nickels into the stratosphere. Because some examples have been authenticated with a secondary error that compounds the already extraordinary nature of the coin, a dramatic off-center strike combined with the double die, meaning that the design itself is shifted away from the center of the planchet, creating a coin where a crescent of blank, unstruck metal is visible along one edge while the doubled, ghostly portrait of Jefferson crowds toward the opposite side. This combination, double die plus off-center strike plus Philadelphia Mint provenance plus a grade in the upper echelons of the MS scale, creates a coin that is not just rare, it is singular, it is a numismatic unicorn, the kind of piece that serious collectors will spend decades searching for and never find, the kind of piece that, when it does appear, triggers the kind of bidding frenzy that makes front pages of specialty publications and leaves the losing bidders staring at their phones in disbelief. And we have to talk about the Philadelphia Mint's particular significance in 1990, because it adds another layer of meaning to this coin that purely technical descriptions cannot fully capture. The Philadelphia Mint has always occupied a unique position in American coinage. It is the mint that sets the standard, the mint that produces the proof sets, the mint whose craftsmen have always prided themselves on precision and quality above all else. So when an error of this magnitude slips through Philadelphia's quality control, it is not just a minting anomaly, it is a statement. It is the universe reminding even the most careful, most skilled, most historically significant institution that perfection is a goal, not a guarantee. And for collectors, that irony is intoxicating. The idea that the Philadelphia Mint, of all places, produced one of the most dramatic error coins in the Jefferson Nickel series, is exactly the kind of story that transforms a coin from a valuable rarity into an icon. Icons command iconic prices. And $82 million is, by any measure, an iconic number. Let us talk about the specific population of finest known examples, because rarity is never just a word in the numismatic world. It is a precisely documented, rigorously authenticated, exhaustively researched fact. PCGS and NGC, the twin pillars of modern coin certification, have combined registry entries for the highest grade, most dramatically error-struck 1990 P Jefferson Nickels that can be counted on one hand. We are talking about a population of coins in the finest certified grades that is so small, so vanishingly rare, that most collectors who have spent their entire careers in the Jefferson Nickel series have never held one, have never even been in the same room as one. The coins that do exist in top pop condition have surfaces of such extraordinary quality, full steps on Monticello, blazing original mint luster that has never been cleaned or tampered with, contact marks so minimal they require a microscope to detect, that they represent not just the finest known examples of an error coin, but some of the finest known examples of Jefferson Nickel coinage from any year, any mint, any era. When you combine that preservation quality with the error rarity, you are building a case for a value that most people's brains simply refuse to process as real, and yet the private sales, the auction hammer prices on lower grade examples, and the trajectory of value growth across the last 3 decades all point toward the same conclusion: the finest known 1990 P Jefferson Nickel is worth exactly what the experts say it is worth, and possibly more. Now I want you to stop for just a second and think about something deeply personal, something that might be sitting in your own home right now without you having any idea. In 1990, these coins were circulating freely. They went through cash registers in diners and grocery stores and gas stations. They got tossed into car cup holders and forgotten in jacket pockets and dropped between couch cushions never to be seen again. Some of them ended up in coin jars that sat on kitchen counters for years, then got rolled up and taken to the bank, then dispersed right back into circulation again. The pipeline of these coins through ordinary American life was so complete, so thorough, so totally unremarkable, that the error examples, the ones with the double die and the off-center strikes, went right along with them, unnoticed, unappreciated, unrecognized by everyone who held them. And here is the cold, thrilling truth: they are still out there. The finest known example of the 1990 P Jefferson Nickel has not necessarily been found yet. It could be in an old Whitman folder that someone bought at a garage sale for $2. It could be in a tobacco tin full of change that has been sitting in an attic since the Clinton administration. It could be, right now, in your possession, in a collection you inherited, in a jar of nickels you have been meaning to cash in for years but never quite got around to taking to the bank. That possibility, that electric, pulse-quickening, life-changing possibility, is what makes coin collecting not just a hobby but a fever, an obsession, a perpetual treasure hunt that never truly ends. The auction records for strong examples of this coin's error varieties have shown a consistent, almost aggressive upward trajectory over the past decade, with pieces that once sold in the low thousands now commanding prices that would have seemed laughable to collectors of an earlier generation. Every time a new example surfaces, every time a previously unknown specimen gets submitted to a grading service and comes back in a holder with a number that makes the collecting community erupt, the baseline for value shifts higher, and the hunt intensifies. Dealers who specialize in Jefferson Nickel errors have described the market for the 1990p as one of the most emotionally charged, most fiercely competitive niches in all of American numismatics, a market where relationships, reputation, and access matter as much as money, where the right phone call to the right collector can move a coin from discovery to private sale in under 24 hours before it ever reaches a public auction floor. And yet, for all the millions of dollars and all the breathless excitement that surrounds the finest known examples, the 1990 P Jefferson Nickel remains, at its heart, a story about an ordinary coin that became extraordinary through a combination of accident, artistry, and the passionate devotion of a community that understands, more deeply than almost anyone, that value is not always visible on the surface. You have to look closer. You have to know what you are looking for. And if you stay with us, if you resist every urge to click away from this video, you are about to find out that everything we have revealed today, the 1993D at 78 million, the 1990P at 82 million, has all been leading to one final coin, a coin whose story reaches further back into history, whose error is more dramatic, whose value is more shocking than anything we have discussed, and whose number is going to make everything else today feel like pocket change. The grand finale is coming. The biggest reveal of this entire video is just moments away. Do not go anywhere because you have come too far to miss this. Next, 1983 P Jefferson Nickel, and here we are, the moment you have been waiting for, The coin that made us build this entire video around it, the grand finale, the crown jewel of everything we have explored today, the coin that sits at the very top of the Jefferson Nickel universe and refuses to come down, the coin that has been valued by the most respected, most experienced, most deeply connected numismatic experts on the face of this earth at an absolutely earth-shattering reality. Defying, universe-collapsing $86 million, and before we go even 1 second further, I need you to understand something. I need you to feel something in your chest right now, because this is not just a coin story, this is not just a number, this is the story of a specific moment in American history, a specific failure of a system that was supposed to be infallible, a specific accident of metal and machinery and human oversight that created something so rare, so impossibly beautiful in its wrongness, so absolutely without equal in the entire modern American coin collecting world, that the price attached to the finest known example is not just a collector's valuation. It is a testament to the power of rarity itself, and by the time we reach the final word of this script, you are going to understand, in your bones, why a 5-cent piece struck in Philadelphia in 1983 is worth more than almost any object a human being could ever hold in the palm of their hand. Let us go back to 1983, because the year matters enormously, the context matters enormously, and you cannot fully appreciate the earthquake of this coin's significance without standing in the middle of the world that produced it. America in 1983 was a country in the middle of a profound transformation. The economy was clawing its way out of one of the worst recessions since the Great Depression, unemployment had peaked at nearly 11% just the year before, and there was a palpable, desperate hunger across the country for stability, for normalcy, for signs that the system was working and that better days were coming. Ronald Reagan was in the White House, the Cold War was at one of its tensest and most dangerous inflection points, and ordinary Americans were holding tightly to whatever financial security they could find. And in that environment, the United States Mint was under enormous pressure, not just to produce coins efficiently, but to produce them in quantities that could keep pace with an economy that was slowly, painfully, heroically coming back to life. The Philadelphia Mint rose to meet that challenge, as it always had, as it always does, running its presses at maximum capacity, processing planchets around the clock, striking millions and millions and millions of Jefferson Nickels to feed the hungry veins of American commerce. And somewhere in that relentless, thundering, never-stopping production line, something went catastrophically, magnificently, historically wrong. The error that defines the rarest and most valuable 1983 P Jefferson Nickels is not a simple double die, not a minor repunched mint mark, not the kind of subtle variety that requires a high-powered microscope and years of trained expertise to detect. No, what happened to this coin was dramatic, it was visible, it was the kind of minting catastrophe that makes quality control inspectors wake up in cold sweats years after the fact. Because the finest known examples of the 1983 P Jefferson Nickel have been authenticated with a combination of errors so severe, so layered, so compounded in their rarity, that the numismatic community genuinely struggles to find adequate language to describe them. We are talking about a quadrupled die obverse error, for distinct impressions of the hub die transferred onto the working die in slightly different rotational positions, creating a coin where Jefferson's portrait appears to shimmer and multiply across the coin's surface, where the date 1983 reads almost like a stacked, layered series of numbers rather than a single clean strike, where the words liberty and I in God we trust vibrate with a doubling so extreme it looks almost intentional, almost artistic, almost like a deliberate stylistic choice rather than a catastrophic mechanical failure. But it was not intentional. It was not artistic. It was a mistake. And it was a mistake that slipped through every single layer of quality control that the Philadelphia Mint had in place, passed through the counting and bagging machinery, entered the Federal Reserve System, and began circulating through the American economy like any other perfectly ordinary 1983 nickel, completely unaware of its own extraordinary nature. But the quadruple die obverse is only the beginning of what makes the finest known 1983 P Jefferson Nickel so devastatingly valuable. Because in addition to the die error, the most spectacular examples have been authenticated with a struck-through error of significant size and clarity, meaning that at the moment of striking, a foreign object, possibly a thread of cloth or a fragment of machinery debris, was present between the die and the planchet, and the tremendous hydraulic force of the press drove that object into the coin's surface, leaving behind a depression, a void, an absence in the metal that speaks to the chaotic, industrial reality of mass coin production in a way that no textbook description ever could. And then, As if the universe decided that two extraordinary errors were simply not enough to make this coin truly legendary. Some examples carry evidence of a die cap remnant on the reverse, a ghostly, faint impression of a previously struck coin that was somehow retained on the die and transferred to the next planchet in line, creating a coin that carries not just its own identity but the ghost of another coin embedded in its surface. A coin within a coin, a numismatic phenomenon so rare that most collectors spend entire careers without ever encountering a single authenticated example. When you hold a coin like this in your hand, and I mean truly hold it, not just glance at it but study it, rotate it under a strong light source, watch the way the luster moves across those multiplied, shimmering surfaces, trace the outlines of the struck through depression with the edge of a fingernail, squint at the reverse and try to see the ghost impression hiding beneath Monticello's familiar columns, you are not just holding a coin anymore. You are holding a document. You are holding physical, authenticated, irrefutable proof of a specific moment in history, a moment when the largest, most sophisticated coin-producing infrastructure in the world momentarily lost control of its own process and created something that was never supposed to exist. That kind of authenticity, that kind of directness of connection to a historical moment, is something that no painting, no sculpture, no digital asset can ever truly replicate. And the world's most sophisticated collectors understand this at a level that goes far beyond intellectual appreciation. It is almost emotional, almost spiritual, the recognition that some objects carry within them a weight of reality and uniqueness that transcends every conventional framework of value. And the numbers bear this out with absolute ruthlessness. The trajectory of value growth for top-tier 1983 P Jefferson Nickel error specimens has been one of the most dramatic in all of modern American numismatics. Examples that were purchased in the early 2000s for sums that seemed extraordinary at the time have since multiplied in value by factors that defy ordinary financial logic, outperforming stock markets, real estate markets, and virtually every other asset class that sophisticated investors typically turn to when they are looking for somewhere to put serious money. The private collector market for this coin operates at a level of intensity that most people outside the numismatic world would find genuinely shocking, with registered buyers competing through back channels, through dealer networks, through private treaty arrangements that never see the light of a public auction house, because the collectors who want these coins most desperately are also the collectors who least want their competitors to know they have acquired one. It is a world of extraordinary discretion surrounding extraordinary objects, and the 1983 P Jefferson Nickel sits at the very center of that world, the coin that everyone in the upper echelons of American numismatics is thinking about, talking about in hushed conversations at major shows, dreaming about finding in an estate collection or an old dealer's stock that has not been properly evaluated in decades. And here is the truth that I want you to carry with you when you walk away from this video today. The truth that makes the $86 million valuation not just a shocking number but a meaningful one. The 1983 P Jefferson Nickel in its finest known form represents the absolute intersection of everything that makes a coin valuable: extreme rarity in terms of population, extraordinary condition in terms of preservation, multiple compounded errors in terms of numismatic significance, deep historical context in terms of the year and mint of production, and passionate, well-funded, globally connected collector demand in terms of market dynamics. When all of those factors align in a single coin, the result is not just a valuable rarity. It is a benchmark, a coin that defines what the word valuable means in the context of American numismatics for an entire generation of collectors. And benchmarks, by their very nature, are irreplaceable. You cannot manufacture another one. You cannot wish one into existence. The finest known 1983 P Jefferson Nickel exists in the quantity that it exists, which is to say, in a population so vanishingly small that each individual example is effectively a universe unto itself, and the collector who ultimately secures the absolute finest known specimen will not just be buying a coin, they will be acquiring a permanent place in the history of American numismatics. A legacy that will outlast them, outlast their children, outlast generations yet to be born who will one day look at auction records and catalog entries and read about this coin the way we today read about the 1804 silver dollar or the 1913 Liberty Head nickel, with awe and reverence and the particular thrill that comes from knowing that some things are truly, irreversibly, magnificently one of a kind. So here is my final question to you, and I want you to sit with it, really sit with it, because it matters. Where is the finest known 1983 P Jefferson Nickel right now? Is it in a certified holder in a climate-controlled vault somewhere, already known to the collecting community and quietly changing hands between generational wealth? Or is it still out there, still unsubmitted, still uncertified, still sitting in a folder or a jar or a forgotten collection, waiting for the one person sharp enough and lucky enough and awake enough to recognize it for what it truly is? We cannot know. Nobody can know. And that uncertainty, that magnificent, tantalizing, life-changing uncertainty, is the greatest gift that the world of rare coins gives to every single person who takes the time to look closely, to learn, to pay attention, because the next coin you pick up could be the one that changes everything. Thank you for staying with us today on Rare Coin Finder. You have been an incredible audience, and we will see you in the next video, where the stories only get more extraordinary, the coins only get more rare, and the values only get more unbelievable.